in?
We're in. Good morning, everybody. This is the Art Review. I'm Daniel Lemon.
I'm Yulia Lennon.
And I'm Alex Mesa.
So we are three artists and we enjoy talking about art. So today we're here to discuss one of the pieces of artwork, and we're going to be using something called a Nigel scale to rate this artwork and to discuss how skillful it is, how innovative, how much it communicates to us, and we're going to rate it 1 out of 10. You can see the Nigel scale below in the bottom of the screen. And please let us know what you think about this piece of artwork, because you can leave some comments and rate it according to your taste. So, what piece are we discussing today?
Today we're discussing Joseph Beuys and the Pack. And I guess to really understand this piece, we have to go into a little bit of the mythos that he created behind the piece, whether or not it's a true story or a false story. It's just the mythology behind the piece. So as the story goes, Joseph Beuys was a pilot, and that he was shot down over Siberia, and then 70% of his body was burnt, and that he was found by a nomadic tribe that their main form of transportation was reindeer. So when they found him, they covered him in lard and wrapped him in a blanket, and for 3 days they traveled by reindeer and brought him to civilization. So it's kind of reflective on the piece of the Pack, because you have all those elements of felt, which is a common theme in his work, lard, and then the torches and the lights and the way it's pulling this kind of VW bus, which is very a German vehicle, right? Mm-hmm. So it's
So we don't know whether that's true, because I'm pretty sure somewhere that I read it was in Crimea rather than Siberia, but it could be that the story evolved.
Well, that's what I was saying. The mythos, the mythos of it is just story. So it's like we attach to it like Van Gogh's ear. You hear this thing, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be true, but it's so romantic that you're just like, oh, you want it to be true.
Apparently the smell of felt and lard, that's what kind of woke his inner artist.
Are you serious?
His inner artist?
Yes, that's
really
another part of the story, I think. But
yeah, when I got to watch a few videos of his that he recorded for Pratt Institute, and I really enjoyed him as a speaker. And I really enjoyed his philosophy behind teaching, because what I read historically would be that people would be rejected to his class, and he would go and find them and say, "Come in, you're welcome in." And his classes swelled to like 300 people. So the institution gave him the whole lower floor of the school to teach these huge classes, which talked about the philosophy of art, what was behind art. And a lot of his artwork had a lot of chalkboard drawings and diagrams and writing, lots of writing and discussion. So I tried to bring that into the way we teach classes here, where if someone doesn't fit in the class, I'm just just show up and don't take no for an answer. And if you're asked a question, just sit there like a deer in the headlights and don't say anything, don't leave. So I like that philosophy. I don't think anyone should be turned down, and if they're hungry to be there, they'll show up.
Oh, that's an interesting. Can you watch any of his lectures on YouTube? Because he's
I haven't seen any of them on YouTube, but I saw the private collection. I also saw private collections of Louis Bourgeois as well. She taught at Pratt, so they sat down and agreed to do certain lectures, and I enjoyed him. I thought he was a great speaker.
Interesting.
This piece kind of speaks to me too, because it's installation. It's in a really big space, it's got all the elements that are important to him, like the felt, the lard, the story. I'm really into mythology in work, so it's like those mythologies.
How many sleds are there? Because they kind of it's like just sleds coming out or going back into.
That's a very technical question, but
Is it 20?
let's say
20.
20.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I don't know if that's really a magic number. 20. kind of
It
flat.
must have
you know?
something related to his experience. Maybe he was in Crimea or Siberia for 20 days.
Yeah, we'll say that. I like that. Crimea.
So the first point that we usually discuss is skill. So what do you guys think about?
I think the skill wise, with just the way it's set up, and it's more of a conceptual idea. So it's like some things are pre-made, like the sleds and all that. He didn't make that stuff. But the skill in which I think it was executed was very good, very clean. It really like spoke to me in that way. So I'm gonna give him a 9 on his skills.
I just always, with conceptual pieces of art or installation, it always makes me question how much we can discuss skill, because there is no, the artist is not actually making anything himself. So you don't have to be a good painter, a good carpenter, a good sculptor. You just putting things together. So on that basis, I'm just going to go for 5 because...
It's safe, huh?
Yes, it's safe.
It's safe. Same with me. Conceptual art's nebulous to me.
Nebulous. I like your vocabulary.
I don't really like. So I usually go a little lower because they're not making anything. I mean, it's arranged well.
But I think it's more falls in the line of intellectual cultivation too.
But skill wise, it's like usually refers to like crafting and knowledge of.
I've seen some pretty crappy installations though, where you're just like, what?
That's true.
You're just like, oh my god, just make it look nicer.
Yeah.
Sweep it up a little. I think it looks, very polished to me. It looks like clean, like
well, it's like a Beetle car.
Yeah.
And sleds coming out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's hard to mess up. Like.
Well, so you'll be surprised, man. Some people can't even clean the toilet right.
So what's your score,
like
Alex?
A 3.
A 3. Okay, so 9.
But take that into account that conceptual art's not my strong suit. It's like.
Okay.
So.
I just think he rolled over in his grave.
Yeah. So 17 divided by 3. So we're looking for an average score.
That'd be a 5.5. But so we'll just say 9.
Okay.
Okay, so 5? 6?
Yeah, 5.
5.
We'll go with 5.
We'll go with 5.
Sorry, Joseph.
So the next point that we're discussing is innovation. What do you guys think in terms of innovation?
Well, innovation too, I think it's, I'm going to probably go pretty high on this one too, because I think it's like what we usually view art as. Like most people have very limited knowledge, or they don't have art in their life. They think painting, drawing, maybe a sculpture of some sort, very limited art history. But here's this thing that's in the room. It's sleighs in a Volkswagen bus with like a felted suit above it, and like it's got all these little meanings in it, like the blankets on each sleigh, the torch, the lard. So it has a part of that story. And so the innovation, I thought, like of the thought process of conveying that in metaphor, I guess, I give it a 9 as well.
You're going to be consistent?
Because I love art. I almost said 8, but I just,
Well, with innovation, again, it's hard to imagine what it was like. What was the year the piece was created? Sorry, I'm just referring to you as an oracle of all the things.
I'm not sure.
Well, it was after Second World War at some point.
The story goes after the Second World War too, but I want to believe that the piece was
60s, 70s?
60s or...
So it's hard to say at the time how innovative it was. I think we now have more precedents of taking personal experience or some kind of a personal myth and then interpreting it, whether it's painting, whether it's the installation, whether. So I think in terms of innovation, I'm gonna go for 5 again.
What? Come
Sorry.
on.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
be consistent.
Come on.
This probably just shows how much we how
Yeah.
we feel about this piece.
So if I start going lower, you're gonna go higher.
Yes,
All right.
just to balance.
I don't know how innovative. When did like found art become like a thing? You know, it's or just like picking up objects and arranging them. Like, is it-
Oh,
It's
I
not
think-
necessarily. I don't think it can be compared to found art. Found art is a lot more.
Yeah,
They're
this is very
unique.
contrived. You know, it's very
Mhm.
like the symbolism
Oh, but-
and like there's a certain method to his thinking to execute this. It's not just like I found this rock and I'm going to balance it on this
Yes,
stump.
yeah.
yeah.
And
Not that I've never done that before, but
There's like, okay, so why did he pick the bus? You know,
I think
I
that
don't
just I think
there were no
that
buses in Russia.
I feel like that
There were definitely no
but I think
BMW
that
buses.
represents him as
the
a
bus
vehicle.
represents him.
It's a German. He's a very German artist, so I feel like it represents him for some reason.
Okay.
That Joseph Beuys is the bus.
With
Interesting.
sleds coming out of him.
Yes.
Gonna go with that 5.
And I like when you look at photographs of him, he always wears a felt hat.
Mm-hmm.
And
It's
I
like
wonder
a
if he
gimmick.
carried some lard
Yeah,
in the
just
pocket.
his pocket.
Yeah.
Never shake his hands. You're
Yes,
just always
yeah.
like butter. You're
Yeah.
like, damn it, you got
Yeah.
me again.
But like, I wonder how much of that is sincere as opposed to like selling a gimmick.
Mm.
You know, it's like,
It's hard to say.
I
Yeah.
feel like he was really 100% committed to like his purpose. Like some of his lectures would go for like days.
Ooh.
Like they'd have like 3 days of lecturing and like large groups, and like he's really talking about basically what we're doing about the meaning of art, and also where he was teaching it at the time was after World War II. So he's teaching like his almost like economic reform, almost bringing democracy into Germany at the time. So I think
He's trying hard to persuade you.
I'm selling you guys, man. I'm not Joseph
No.
Beuys. I'm
No,
gonna
the
get you
thing-
pillows.
I told
and-
you, it's like I don't. In terms of conceptual art, innovation. I don't really know how to place it. You know, so I'm just gonna go with the 5 because
Okay,
be
let's
safe.
get in. Yes.
So 19, it would be 19 divided by 3. He's got 6 now. We're moving on up. See, it's working.
You're going with 6
it's
and a half.
working.
Your magic is working.
It's working.
Okay, so next point is communication. And I'm just going to say right now, it's going to be 5 again for me.
What? Come on. This doesn't communicate to you?
I don't have much of a connection to
Yeah.
buses or
Sleighs.
or
You
sleighs
never-
with lard
No,
and
no
film.
sledding when you were a child?
Even though I was born in Russia, I can't quite connect. No one
Yeah.
ever wrapped me in
Well, that's the thing that when you
In
attach
felt.
yourself to this mythos. Okay, so imagine this journey that you put yourself in his shoes, where you're totally decapacitated and you're burnt. You can't do anything for yourself. You're beholden to this tribe of people who wrap you and cover you in lard and then transport you for days on this sleigh. You know, you're not doing nothing. You're like a burrito.
I have a
little
question. I have
Yulia
a little
burrito.
Yeah, I have a little question.
Little
so we're
burrito
talking
question?
we're talking about 1943, if
Yeah.
I'm not wrong, 1944. As far as I know, on the territory of Russian Federation,
Mm-hmm.
there were no tribes that will put you in lard,
Yeah.
wrap you in blanket, and drag you on the sleigh.
Well,
This is just
Yeah.
my ethnic knowledge, but I might be
you
be
be-
totally
well,
wrong.
there's still tribes in South America that have never
Yeah,
had
but that wasn't.
contact
But
with
that was
other
in Russia.
people. Russia too is a very large state. I hear there's a
I
lot
know.
of Bigfoot walking around that we haven't even
And
begin
bears. Yeah.
to touch.
Yes, that's right.
But Siberia also, in that area,
Or Crimea.
Ukraine is very rural. So it's like there's not a lot of like development. It's not like a cities and stuff. So I can see where there could be some of that tribal society. Maybe in the 40s too. You know, maybe it's been appropriated now.
Now they
but
have a whole community
Yeah.
that wraps you in blankets.
the whole city is built out of lard.
Yes.
Greasy. So, what were we talking about? Communication?
Yes,
You
yeah.
gave it a 5.
Yeah.
This communicates to me. I'm just going to stick with my 9.
Okay. I was coming up fresh to this piece, like I never seen it before. I just saw a picture of it. No idea what it meant. I had to like read about this whole history.
His
Before I'm
personal
like,
story.
oh, okay, I guess he's saying something, and it was kind of cute. With his mission was to save the world or something, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so those sleds bring safety or comfort or something like that. Right? That's the
Yeah.
thing. Like he was rescued, so they're
Yeah.
like sending out a pack of rescue animals out into the world. So that's I appreciated the piece a little bit after that, but coming at it fresh, I was like, it didn't communicate anything to me.
You're like,
Yeah, I was like, okay, it's a bus with some sleds coming out of it.
why did you pick this?
It's called a pack. Okay, like a pack of sleds.
Yeah. It's hard to grasp at
I
first.
give it a 2.
You give it a 2? Damn.
I just, I don't like. You gotta
17.
communicate to the common man, right?
Okay.
Not just to like the intellectual academia of the museums, all that stuff.
Well, what
So-
about like aesthetics though? When you come into a space that's large like that, and all of a sudden you see this object that's just like arranged
what I
in a
mean.
specific way.
Okay, so you look at a Greek sculpture. You can be like any age, any time. You look at it, you understand it right away. It's like
I don't know.
You don't need to have, like, a
I look at the
degree.
Greeks all the time, and I don't understand all. That.
yes, it's like a human
But-
figure doing something.
But
So-
but it's even like child. So I have children that are 4. And when they do drawings, you understand. It communicates to you very clearly. So some
they
of the
communicate.
contemporary art, it's hard to understand right away. Like you said, without reading what this piece is about, it's hard to understand. So
Well, I think that's even in just like further back in our history, the use of metaphor was used a lot more than like contemporary art now. It's like it's almost like metaphor has been lost in the work today,
but
and we're on another path.
with his art, we previously in the Christian art, everybody knew the stories, so everyone could communicate by translating these stories. Now what he's showing us is his personal story, his personal myth, which existed or didn't never happen before, or sorry, never happened. So we don't know what he's saying to us unless we have some kind of a reading.
I think that's what kind of started the conflict in art between the public, the general public, and artists. That started to deviate between. You need to read 10 books at least to understand one piece.
Yeah, it's kind
Well,
of slowly
maybe
pulling
you-
away from the from the general public.
Yeah, but you also, I think, in any kind of art, even today, you have to engage the public. Your job as an artist is to make people see, because generally, when someone comes in, they don't know whether or not your painting's oil or acrylic, or so it's not necessarily explaining, but it's making them see your vision. So he's engaging the public in a new way. And Joseph Campbell did it too. Like he made, like most people, mythology just went right over their heads, but he was so good at stringing the stories together that it made it accessible for the general person.
But that's like something you read. It's not like a visual thing that you have to
I'm a
decipher.
reader.
We all are. We all read.
We have to read to understand.
But it's like you really have to know about him specifically. So
Yeah. And I think art, he's maybe it's catering to a certain crowd of people who, like, I love art. I love it. So, like, I live it, and I'm interested in the meat of those stories. And, I find most people are having a different experience. Most people are praying to the altar of the television. They're not engaged with art anymore.
But I think this stage of art is actually shifting art from being from being art, in my opinion, to something like almost like a science, or
Yeah.
you know, a subject that you have to study to understand. So, for example, I cannot pick up a book on quantum physics without some kind of prior introduction and reading and understanding of it. So this piece of artwork is not accessible to a viewer as a subject of art. This is a piece of constructed sort of philosophy as such. So you need to be prepared to go into it. And to me, this is so much of modern art is about that. You have to be in it, and we understand it, and we can read about it, and we know all the jargon. But most people would find it baffling, I think.
Yeah. I think that's correct.
Okay, so the final score.
9.
Well, no,
The final score.
no, for communication.
Communication.
So I think it was 6. Yeah, I came out with. I was 9. You're
5.
5 and 2, so 17. 16 divided by 3 would be 5.
Average.
Yeah,
Average 5.
Can be 5.
Yeah, because we
Because
did the
you
first
give it 5. You give it 9, and
Yeah,
then
2.
2, so
Yeah.
7
okay.
plus
let's-
9
Yeah.
is 17. We're doing
This is
hard
a
math.
rough, yeah.
See, hard math
Might as
today.
okay. let's,
Okay, intellectual property.
Intellectual property. What does that even mean for something like this?
I think
It's
we kind
hard.
of discussed, we
Yeah.
discussed a little bit of it here and there.
So
but I
I'm
think
gonna,
intellectual.
I'm gonna stick with my. I'm gonna
You
stick
just
with my 9. You know, like I
is
like
an
Joseph Beuys,
easy-
man. I like him.
Easy way
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
He's my
yes.
faves.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, to me, intellectual property is something that a person invented or came to realize, or something that contributes to this society.
Yeah.
And on one hand, there is this kind of original story, but on the other hand, that story kind of ended with him. So
Well,
I don't know. I'm gonna go for 5.
oh, well, you also have to think that he's around when Warhol's around, and they're very connected in like the way they work together. There's I got to restore this great piece of a photograph of him done by Warhol and printed. But they were both teaching this message, even though it was pop art and popular culture. It's like you go to an exhibit and you see a bunch of floating silver pillows that are called clouds. That's a little above the normal public way of thinking as well.
I just think that period, but particularly after wars, the society is like in a huge stress. That happened like several times after the First World War and Second World War.
Black Square.
Black Square exactly happened. So there is a lot of experimentation because people are just facing this crisis in the society where they're saying, look, we can't look where this took us. This is what we did, so we have to do things different way. So to me, this era is more about like experimentation and trying different things and search for directions. But I'm still gonna stick to 5. You can't move me.
Also think of like the hero's journey too. It's like you go and your descent on your quest. It's like a descent into the underworld, and then there's the return. He's returned from his hero's journey, burnt. Like 70% of his body's burnt. He's had to rely on people to help him back, and he's changed forever. And he's brought back to society. And what is he doing after attaining that knowledge? He's educating. He's getting people to see art in a new way. He's getting it to be in people's lives. So he's dedicated to that lecture of, the shaman, preaching the gospel in a way.
That's it. Okay, so he did that, but just to like a selective group of people,
He had some large lectures, and he
I
got
know,
out
but,
there.
like,
Yeah, but they're
compared
still
to,
just
like-
art students.
Yeah. So, so
art viewers too.
I know
he
he's in
showed
his,
in New York.
he's in history books,
Yeah.
and so he brought something to the conversation of art, I guess. So
Yeah.
give it a 4.
Damn. My powers are fading, man. I gotta
So it's another
I gotta
6.
burn
I
some
think, in
sage
terms
over
of
here. Shaman.
Average.
Shaman power.
Okay, emotion.
Emotion.
Oh boy.
How do you feel?
So do you know what? I actually felt really strongly about his other piece, which was a piano that was wrapped and felt. I don't know if you
I
guys saw
love
that.
that piece too.
With a red cross on it. and that really stirred
Right, you
me.
guys, but we have to.
But speed up. But this piece doesn't move me. Once I said you read about that's like kind of supposed to save the world. There's something there, but to me, 3.
3 for me
You're
too.
feeling emotional now.
I'm feeling emotional
So
right
Daniel
now.
really, really, really liked this piece.
I'm just
Yeah.
gonna cry. No, well, I picked this piece because we didn't. Originally I was gonna talk about Coyote, which was like a more of a performance piece, but I thought this piece was tied into his mythos that he was trying to go from. And with mythology and any kind of archetypes, you are building off a platform, like a springboard. Like a certain story is told 100 times a day, and then when you build onto that in a contemporary version, it propels you more. It's got some potency, some juju to it. So on an emotional level, I'll give it.
9?
I'm gonna give it a 10 because you guys are going so low.
Just
Well, no, the thing. Okay, so art, it's always at an idea. Like it, you have an idea and then you execute it. He separated the idea from the actual work. And so I see it and I just see kind of like, I just put some pieces together.
Oh,
It
but we're
occurred to
talking
me.
emotion.
And then I had to read about the meaning of it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
the saving the world, that's a nice sentiment. Yeah,
Let's save the world.
let's
Let's do this.
yeah, it's okay. So what was it? What's his final
Motion.
score?
What did you rate it?
4,
I
10.
give it a 3. Right?
Oh.
You give it a
3?
3? Yeah.
Okay, so 17. What's
Okay.
the average?
5
Divided by
again.
3.
5
5
again.
again. We're consistent.
All right, let's
Okay.
get to livability here.
So
Can
would
you
you
live with it?
Yes. Would you have that in your
Oh,
living room,
no.
Alex? 0. 0.
I wouldn't be able to live with it, but I would live with the story of it, the mythos of
A
it,
print.
but without the piece. So I have to say 0 too. But yeah.
It's a 0, 0, 0. So what's the total
Sorry,
score?
Joseph. Sorry.
It's still like it's a bit unbalanced, because I feel like if we were all conceptual artists, we'd be like raving over it. Like, oh my God.
Well, I think that's the purpose.
So
is that
this
we're
one,
all
take it
coming
with a
from
grain of
different
salt. Yeah, I
backgrounds.
just take this one, just with a grain of salt. We're not, experts on conceptual science. So
Yeah. Well, that's
Yes,
the
yeah.
diversity is our strength.
Yeah.
You have your perspective, and we all have unique perspectives. So when you bring something up, it's like good to
Yeah.
have that counter feeling on it.
Yeah, I feel whatever
that
the
is
score
art.
is. What do we have?
So what's the total score? 5, 5. So 3, 5, 15 plus 12 is make it to 27.
27. That's a 3 5s, or is that two 6s?
3
Oh,
5s,
yeah,
2
3 5s.
2
6s.
6s, 3 5 2 6. Yeah.
All right. Well, you guys can rate the work yourself
Yeah.
and tell us what you think.
Make sure you hit the buttery like button on the bottom of the
Lardy.
screen. Lardy.
Yeah.
You get a little
Wrap it in felt.
tactile. Yeah. Wrap us in felt blanket.
And lard.
Yeah. And lard.
And see you next
All
time.
right. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you.